Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm gonna show you my 7 tricks for getting a fantastic popover. Tip number 1, make sure your milk and your eggs are at room temperature. This will just allow them to rise sky high when they're in the oven. If you forget to take out the milk, you can warm it in the microwave on high at 30-second increments just until it's warmed through. And for the eggs, you can submerge them in warm water for about 10 to 15 minutes. And tip number 2 is to combine the eggs with the milk ahead of time. That will make sure that your eggs are really nicely incorporated without over mixing the flour, because you don't want to overmix the flour or you'll have a tough, gummy popover. And we want a nice, light and airy popover. Before I add the flour, I'm gonna add a half a teaspoon of kosher salt. I just like the kosher salt because it's a nice coarse salt without being like overly salty like table salt would. So this is just regular all-purpose flour. You don't need any fancy flour. And we're just gonna add it a little bit at a time, stirring just until it's combined. There, and it should have the texture of like heavy cream or paint. Okay, tip number 3 has to do with the type of pan you use. So I am a big fan of the popover pan. This is what it looks like. It has 6 wells to it. Each well is isolated and kind of suspended by these little rods. And what this does is it allows the heat from the oven to get in between the wells and create a really delicious golden brown crusty exterior. Now, you could make these in a muffin tin. They will really pop over that way. They won't reach the same height, but it'll still be pretty good. Number 4, this is another big tip. A lot of recipes will call for using melted butter in the wells, but I have found that you don't have the same assurance that the batter is not going to stick. And there is nothing more disheartening to take your beautiful popovers out of the oven and then try to lodge them from the pan and then they fall apart because they're stuck to the pan. So there's 2 tips that will help with that. Tip number 1 is to just use vegetable oil. And what I do is I take a capful and just put a little bit in each well, like a splash or so. You don't want to overdo it. And then take a paper towel and just distribute it all in the well, making sure you're also getting at the bottom of the well. The reason why you don't want to put too much oil in this pan is because we have to heat our pan first. That's tip number 5. Heat the pan before you put the batter in, because that will also alleviate any sticking. Okay, I'm gonna heat my pan. All right, I have my hot pan here, and using just 1 ladle full of batter, I am going to fill these up. Now, this can sometimes get a little bit drippy. It's okay, it will actually cook and burn off. And I also think too, just taking your ladle and letting it drip and then scraping it along the side of the bowl will prevent it from dripping. So you don't want to go more than 2/3 of the way up. It's really tempting to overfill these little wells thinking you're going to get a nice big popover, but not to worry. You underfill them, you'll get a bigger one because it just has more room to expand. If you have any oil, you can see the oil here on the top. Just give it a stir because you don't want that oil to collect on the bottom, or it will affect the way the popover rises. Some of it will rise and some of it won't. So just take a little fork and stir that together and you will be good to go. And then that leads us to tip number 6, which is you want to bake your popovers at 2 temperatures. So we're first going to begin at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. This is allowing that batter to do all of the rising. At this point, they are the most fragile. So if you open the door just to check on them, they will deflate and you will have a really smushy, soggy popover. So just be patient. Turn on your oven light and you can watch them rise through the window. Then you want to reduce the oven at 350 and go for another 10 to 15 minutes. And the second part is important because this is what is going to bake the interior of the popover, which also sort of dries it out a little bit. Otherwise, again, they become really eggy and sort of soggy in the interior if they don't bake all the way through in the second baking. All right, look at these beauties. You can see how they've totally puffed up thanks to the fact that we did not overfill them. All right, now, here's the next tip, tip number 7. You want to poke each one with a sharp knife just to let the steam out. That will prevent them from deflating too quickly. See, and now watch this, lifting out. This is what you get with the oil as opposed to the butter. Now I like to put a little bit of raspberry jam inside. I think they're quite good like that. But another thing you could do is you could fill this with some sour cream and smoked salmon or some scrambled eggs with bacon and cheese for like little brunch popovers would be fantastic. All right, let's give it a try, and I'll tell you what they are like with a little bit of the jam. How good does this look? These are so delicious. They're puffy and crunchy at the same time, light and fluffy, and just really fabulous. Just remember the 7 tips. All right, you guys, I'll see you back here next time. Until then, bye.